Hey everyone, welcome back to the Climate Realism video series. Today, we're going to talk about what climate change is really about on a global scale. So, every year we have these climate conferences. There was Paris, Copenhagen, Cancun, they're all over. And you get people like Greta Thunberg showing up yelling, "How dare you?"
How dare you?
And Leonardo DiCaprio showing up in a private jet, mind you, telling us that climate change is an existential crisis. Obviously, you got Al Gore. How could you miss Al Gore? You gotta have Al Gore. But we're told that climate change is, this huge existential crisis. It's gonna doom humanity, and they're gonna solve it at these climate conferences. The thing is, these conferences aren't actually about the climate. What are they about? Wealth redistribution. Now, obviously, that's quite the claim. But don't take it from me. Take it from former United Nations climate official Otmar Edenhofer. Now, he said, one has to free oneself from the illusion that international climate policy is environmental policy. This has almost nothing to do with environmental policy anymore. Edenhofer co-chaired the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's working group on mitigation of climate change from 2008 to 2015. That was a word salad. Now, in the same interview, he said, "The climate summit in Cancun at the end of the month is not a climate conference, but one of the largest economic conferences since the Second World War." And to be clear, he is referring to the 2010 United Nations Climate Change Conference in Cancun. So I said that on a global scale, climate change is really about wealth redistribution, and the United Nations official that we just quoted was saying these are economic conferences. Well, it comes down to a system called emissions trading. Emissions trading is where a nation is given a certain amount of permits that allow them to emit a certain amount of certain pollutants, namely carbon dioxide. I put it in air quotes because carbon dioxide isn't dooming humanity, so I don't know if I'd call it a pollutant, but whatever. Now, where this gets interesting is that countries can actually buy and sell permits from each other to allow more or less emissions. Now, the way that you can actually use this system for wealth redistribution is that you can give an equal number of permits to, say, the United States and South Africa. Then, the United States, actually, first let's check out how much each country emits. You can see that in 2018, the United States emitted 5.41 gigatons of carbon dioxide. South Africa emitted only 0.46 gigatons. So if you give an equal number of permits to the United States and South Africa, the United States will purchase the majority of South Africa's permits so they can continue with the status quo. South Africa never needed so many permits, so they're not emitting that much, so they'll just sell them away. It's just free money for them. And what you end up doing is you've created a system where you are, again, redistributing wealth from the United States to South Africa. Now, what's interesting is that when you do this, you're not actually just taking money from the United States. What you're doing is you're taking money from the US taxpayers. So you're taking money from people like you and me, and then you're giving it to other third world nations. Now, that's a very moral idea, I guess, if you think it's moral to take money from people and distribute it to other nations against their will.